Hearing none, it's so accepted. Next up is what some of you are interested in is House Bill 506. It's on short-term rentals and regulations, and Representative Redmond will be presenting, but I'm going to go over a couple things first. And before I forget, because I thought about this, you're going to hear things today that you like, and you're going to hear things you don't like. Applause and boos are not appreciated. They're not. This is almost a quasi-judicial arrangement. We have a hard stop at 4 o'clock. Do we have to be on the floor? So I'm trying to get this meeting done by 3:50. We have way more than people than we can possibly run through in public testimony, allowing everybody 2 minutes. Some people suggest we cut it down to a minute, but you can't hardly say anything in 1 minute. So we're going to stick with the 2-minute rule. So I'm assuming we're going to get through about half the people that have registered to either be in person or virtual. If when we get to the public testimony, I'm going to try to tell them who's up first, and then we're going to say who's on deck and who's in the hole. I love baseball. And we've got 2 chairs there that are going to be vacated here in a moment. And those chairs were for the on-deck person and the person in the hole, because they may be in the other room, and we're trying to get them to head on over here. I'm assuming that the sponsor is going to take about 15 minutes, hopefully maximum, of explaining the bill. And then we're going to open it up to questions from the committee. And I'm hoping we can keep that under 10 minutes. And then we're going to open it up for public testimony. We've allowed 2 groups to take up to 5 minutes because they're representing a group like the Association of Idaho Cities and the Resort Cities Coalition. Then as soon as they're done, we will move on to the traditional public testimony of individuals. The opposition, those first 2, we can't ask questions from the committee. But once we get into the 2-minute drill of individuals, we will not ask any questions. So even though you might get done and ask if there's any questions, I'm not going to allow any questions and answers because we can't delay, that drags things out. I'm asking everybody to try and not repeat things that you've heard previously in your testimony. Try to emphasize things that are new. And it's all right to get up and just say, I support the bill or I don't support the bill and why. And if you feel everything, I agree with everything that's already been said, and sit down. That's perfectly fine. That allows more people an opportunity to publicly testify. Once we get through with the public portion of the testimony, the sponsors have an opportunity to make closing remarks, and they can respond to anything they've heard during the public hearing. And they can also take some questions from the committee. And then at about 3:30, we're going to turn it over to the committee for committee action and deliberations. So that's kind of the guideline that I'm going to try to follow today and the timeline. And it is, according to my notes, 1:35. And so this is time for Representative Redmond to tell us about House Bill 506.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Jordan Redmond from District 3 in Kootenai County. First off, I'd like to say thank you very much, Chairman Clow, for allowing this to be heard. Regardless of the outcome today, I do think this is an issue that needs to be discussed in this body. House Bill 506 comes to us today from meetings I had with several of my constituents from up north when I came home from last session. They told me about an issue where they saw their personal property rights being infringed upon. This had been done through overregulation of municipalities to effectively ban short-term rentals. I started working with this constituent group, which quickly spread throughout the state. Multiple folks explaining similar experiences. Several of these constituents are on a fixed income explained how it would severely affect their livelihood, an effective ban on short-term rentals. We started working with the Idaho realtors and came up with a bill. This year when we came to session, it was obviously spoke about, floated around a little bit, and I spoke personally with several of my city officials up north and heard their questions and concerns with the legislation. We also met with the resort cities in a meeting and made some adjustments to the bill. Let me be clear, we did not make all the amendments that they requested, but we did have a couple concessions. At the heart of this bill, it is a private property right. That's what we're trying to solve here. This bill allows for several regulations that we don't see as restrictive to the cities, but still allow for private property rights. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask Max Pond to come up and walk through the bill and explain a little bit of history behind the bill.
Okay, thank you. Jordan, Representative Redmond, why don't you just sit up in the hot seats? And is that Melissa? You can come up there too. We want to get a good shot at you. So I did that because we do have 2 seats there for the on deck and in the hole, and then to try and make space for as many people as possible. Mr. Pond, if you give us for the record information and continue on the opening debate.
All right, Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you very much. Max Pond, I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Idaho Realtors. Thank you for having us today here for a quick meeting. That was a joke. I'm here to talk about House Bill 506, a piece of legislation that clarifies existing law, which this legislature passed affirming private property rights. House Bill 506 also provides clarity and understanding not only for property owners, but for local jurisdictions as well, while additionally providing tools and remedies for local jurisdictions relating to public health and safety considerations. Current law states neither a county nor city may enact or enforce any ordinance that has the express or practical effect of prohibiting short-term rentals. Current law also states that short-term rentals are classified as residential use for zoning purposes. So committee, what does this mean? Well, from the perspective of Idaho Realtors and the property owners supporting House Bill 506 in here today, essentially it means this. Because these properties are already classified as residential use in current statute, they can't be subject to the overreach we are seeing around the state, forcing them to meet commercial standards. Some of the overreach that we are seeing include remodeling your home, installing new ingress, egress, installing new windows, installing fire sprinklers, deed restrictions, conditional use permits, requiring guests to be related. I could go on, but I know that we've got some folks here who would like to talk about it as well. So the question, Mr. Chairman and committee, is this. At what point do these requirements start to have a practical effect of prohibiting short-term rentals? Since the passage of the initial short-term rental statute in 2017, we have seen local jurisdictions testing the limits of the law all over the state of Idaho. As I mentioned before, House Bill 506 clarifies existing law for both local jurisdictions and property owners. So I'm going to get into a little bit of what it does for local jurisdictions, and then we'll get into what it does for property owners. House Bill 506 allows for the licensing of all short-term rentals in a jurisdiction, which you can find beginning on line 22 of page 2. House Bill 506 clarifies that all short-term rental properties are subject to, quote, all other county and city ordinances and penalties that apply to other residential uses, including but not limited to noise, parking, nuisance, curfew, traffic, and similar regulations. Excuse me. You can find this on line 32 of page 1. For public health and safety considerations, House Bill 506 includes a safety disclosure requirement that all short-term rental properties, before renting, must disclose if the property does not have smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguishers, first aid kits. You can find this on line 40 of page 2. Beginning on line 40 of page 2. Additionally, House Bill 506 requires that all short-term rental properties comply with any requirement, including safety, of the short-term rental marketplaces. These are the Airbnbs and whatnot. We included this language in the bill because we know that the Airbnbs of the world have taken direct action through their own business practices to address problem properties and problem owners. You can find this on page 2 of line 47. Finally, if a property owner has received 3 or more convictions in a calendar year, meaning the property owner was issued a ticket for the violation and paid it, or the property owner contests the violation in court and is ultimately found to have violated the ordinance. then the local jurisdiction may revoke that property's license to operate as a short-term rental. You can find this language on page 2, line 25. I know that was a long list, but now let's get to what it does for property owners. House Bill 506 provides assurance for property owners who have been renting their house, and in a lot of cases have been renting their house since 2017 when the initial bill went through the Idaho legislature. But again, a lot of these folks have been renting these homes prior to that as well. This is to make sure that, that local jurisdictions can't come in and compel you to either remodel your house physically or make you reconsider your investment altogether. Mr. Chairman and committee, House Bill 506 is a balanced solution that provides clarity for local jurisdictions and provides certainty for property owners that the right to rent, which was granted to them in 2017, is not ripped out from under them. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would turn a little bit of time over to Ms. Radford.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Radford, if you could give us your for the record information and then tell us about House Bill 506.
All right. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the esteemed House Business Committee, I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for having this hearing. So my name is Melissa Radford. I live in Coeur d'Alene, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I represent the CDA Vacation Rental Alliance, a group with 557 members based in Coeur d'Alene, and the Idaho Vacation Rental Association, a group of 604 members across the state that have joined together in an entirely grassroots effort to bring this bill before the Idaho State Legislature in order to beg your oversight of overreaching local governments across the state. City leaders say you should trust their judgment and let them rule our cities without oversight. They don't want to be held accountable to the U.S. or Idaho Constitution because they believe their judgment is infallible. But the truth is that they have created strife within our communities by encouraging outright discrimination of short-term rentals. They trumpet scare tactics that they can't back up with evidence. Our cities completely ignore your legislative intent from 63-1802 that was intended to guide the implementation of the original short-term rental statute 67-6539. The legislative intent states, this act is designed to promote access to short-term rentals and vacation rentals by limiting local governmental authority to prohibit these beneficial property uses or to specifically target them for regulation, and that's what's happening. HB506 does not take away a city's ability to require a permit or revoke the permit if a problem property exists in the communities. It only requires them to work within the guidelines of the U.S. and Idaho constitutions. It does not allow arbitrary and capricious regulations that require homeowners to pursue prohibitively expensive changes or litigation which must be defended at taxpayer expense. It requires them to provide all Idahoans with equal treatment under the law, no more or no less. Please pass this bill. Many of our city leaders have not acted in good faith, and the Constitution must win. I'll leave you with this quote from one of our founding fathers and the second president of the United States, John Adams. The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the law of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Radford. Anything more in your opening comments? Okay. Committee, this is a good time to ask any technical questions you might have at this point of the sponsor group before we move on to other public testimony. So, Representative, any questions? Trying to look around and make sure. Apparently we don't have any questions. You can remain up there because, well, I don't know, I guess we have extra seats so you can move back into the audience. I thought it would be full. No, you should stay out there. As a matter of, yeah, don't join us, please. As a matter of record, you're part of the sponsor team and you shouldn't be part of the interrogation. You could be interrogated, but not the other way around. So with that, we do have a couple of people. Kelly Packer will be the first to speak, and she will be provided 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes. And then,
5-minute timer.
Yeah. And then we have Jade Riley, if you can move up in there. Now, and then the first regular public testimony will come from, let's see if I get this right. Kathy Izat, is she here? She might be in the other room, and if you are, if you could move up here and you're in the hole. So Representative Packer, former Representative Packer, Director Packer.
Thank you, Chairman Clow.
Okay.
Appreciate that, and House Business Committee, appreciate the time. I will try not to take the full 5 minutes because I know you have a lot of people waiting behind me. My name is Kelly Packer. I am the Executive Director of the Association of Idaho Cities. I'm here to testify in opposition to House Bill 506 and ask the committee to hold it in committee. Thomas Jefferson is often quoted as saying, "The government closest to the people governs best." But House 506 removes municipalities' ability to regulate short-term rentals in their communities in the way that's best for their communities. It removes the ability for the government closest to the people to govern. The proposed amendments to Idaho Code 67-6539 do not work because a one-size-fits-all approach to this issue will not work. One area may need to manage for limited water and sewer capacity. Another may need to manage the needs of limited parking. Another may need to consider limited emergency services or extended emergency response times. And all elected officials at the local level are trying to balance the needs and concerns of their permanent residents with those of the guests that visit their towns. Mayors and council members are the right elected officials to address the many issues that can and do arise. This legislation is a reaction to legal precedent that was set in the Idaho Realtors versus Lava Hot Springs case. The court's determination that the short-term rental ordinance was necessary for public welfare and neighborhood integrity needs to be recognized and upheld, not worked around. House Bill 506 seeks to undermine that decision, which clearly showed that the established existing framework allows communities to enact appropriate regulations for short-term rentals. Local communities seek to balance economic interests with the well-being of their communities. Preserving local control ensures that the interests of our residents and neighbors are not sacrificed. Idaho Code 67-6539 is working and does not need to be amended. I urge you to reject House Bill 506 and preserve our existing code, preserving local control where it is crucial for maintaining community standards, integrity, and overall well-being, while at the same time balancing the interests of property owners and the broader community. After all, property rights do matter, but not just for those who own or would like to own short-term rentals. Again, I would respectfully ask that you hold House Bill 506 in committee, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Okay. Committee, any questions for Kelly Packer? I don't see any, so
Thank you,
thanks very
Chairman.
much. Next up is Jade Riley with Cassie Izat is on deck. I haven't seen her come in yet. And after Kathy will be, no, he's five. Yeah. Okay, and after Kathy will be Robert Giles. He'd be in the hole, okay? Very good. Jade, for the record information.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this important legislation. My name is Jade Riley. I serve as the city administrator for Ketchum. I'm here today representing 21 communities who make up the Idaho Resort Cities Coalition, a group of cities ranging from Swan Valley to Sandpoint who rely on tourism as a major component of our local economies. We respectfully ask you to not support the proposed legislation as it is unnecessary and it tramples on the rights of our existing local property owners who have participated alongside short-term rental property owners in robust local public processes in the development of these local regulations. Idaho cities have followed the policy direction as outlined by the legislature in 2017 and 2018 on short-term rental legislation, where we were giving limited regulatory power focused on public safety and the protection of neighborhood integrity. This has been the foundation of city regulations across Idaho, and each of those, as any good local ordinance should, has varied by each community of what has been important to their local community. The public safety elements that are common in many of our local ordinances ensure things like a working smoke detector or CO2 detector, that someone is not converting a basement into a bedroom without safe emergency exits. These regulations are based on the fact that short-term rental units have a much higher rate of public safety incidents than single owner occupied units. One only has to look at the 4 lives that were lost in 2017 near Donley in a short-term rental home from an unsafe fireplace to understand the importance of these safety measures. This proposed legislation seeks to either remove or dilute these common sense public safety regulations. For example, the in-person fire inspection allowed under the current code, which is critical to preventing future tragedies. The proposed legislation in front of you instead proposes the use of affidavits instead of inspections. But are affidavits effective? Imagine drivers promising to drive safely on Idaho's highways without inspection from state troopers. Beyond enforcement, the existing inspection process allows an educational process between local fire personnel and the homeowner. In many instances, we have found the property owner to be unaware of their unsafe situation and was willing to make the necessary changes to protect future renters to make sure they were safe, as well as remove a personal liability risk that exists to the property owner. Compliance has been the goal of these regulations. Neighborhood compatibility also is looking at reasonable regulations to ensure existing property rights are protected from things like excessive noise, overflowing trash, parking spaces, or party houses. The proposed legislation removes our ability to regulate these basic elements and sends a clear message to the property owner and residents that existing residents' rights do not matter. Only those short-term property owner rights should be considered. For resort cities, it is in our best interest to ensure regulations are balanced between short-term rental property owners and residents, as our local tourist economies rely on both. Second homes have been a part of our communities for decades, but the sheer volume has changed significantly. Nationally, there has been a tenfold increase. If we take my community, for example, in the 1980s, 30% of our total housing stock were short-term rentals. Now it hovers around 60%. Other resort cities, such as McCall, have seen similar growth. It is not just the increase in short-term rental growth, but an increase in the number of out-of-state investment companies who own them and do not have the same local oversight or connection to our communities. The regulations enacted by resort cities have been focused on the rights of local property owners and not just those of short-term rentals. Simply put, there is not a problem with the current regulatory framework. The short-term rental market is thriving in the current Idaho law, and we would ask the committee to do a no pass on this legislation, and we're happy to continue to work with the realtors to see if there are things that need to be addressed with any current legislation. With that, I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Riley? Let's see. We have one question. Representative Birch?
Just very quick, do you have a percentage or an estimate of the percentage of these units that are owned by out-of-state investment companies?
Mr. Riley, just so everyone knows, you always come through back to the chair. Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Birch, I do have a data sheet. I'm happy to get that to you. It does vary by each of our communities, but it is something that we're able, most of us do an online subscription, are able to monitor almost weekly the rate of our short-term rentals.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, Kathy Izett, I see now you've changed from in-person to being virtual, so if you could start to log in, and following Kathy will be Robert Giles, and then it will go to Jeremy Radford. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So the virtual ones sometimes take a moment to get everybody logged in. She's there. There she is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We can't see you, but you could go ahead with your testimony if you like it. Give us your for the record information, is your name and maybe where you're from, and then give us your testimony.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Clow and Business Committee members, I appreciate the opportunity. The STR economy is as important and relevant as resorts. Both are valid. Both deserve access to income from tourism. We can all agree that the number of emails and contacts you have received about this bill directly relate to the 2018 legislature that's already on the books. You wouldn't have this much noise in your ears were it not important and were it not a problem. Local governments began adopting regulations to strangle the new kid on the block, being the STR industry. There was a time when hotels, long-term rentals, B&Bs were all the new kid on the block. But we are Americans. We are Idahoans. We believe in and support free enterprise, private property rights, and self-determination. The STRs that are here in Bear Lake County, where I live, promote togetherness, comfortable surroundings, entertainment for the kids. The guests buy souvenirs, they attend the local theater, they go to our Oregon Trail Museum, they eat out, they spend money, they have ice in multiple containers to take care of the sunburns from their day on the lake. They support increased real estate jobs and taxes and support the hospitality industry. They pour millions into new construction. This week, Idaho State Parks and our commissioners announced purchase of more than 20 acres for a new Idaho State Park on the west side of Bear Lake. That is a much anticipated and needed improvement.
Kathy?
That STRs help. Yes, sir.
We need you to wrap up. Your 2 minutes has expired, and I need you to actually say your names for the record so we get that attached.
Thank you. Kathy Isett from Fish Haven, Idaho. Please support Bill HB506.
Okay.
Give the newest kid on the block the same opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up in person is Robert Giles.
That's correct pronunciation.
Okay, and then Jeremy Radford, and then the whole is a virtual Dan Gukin. So Dan, if you can be ready when we get to the virtual. So Robert, if you could give us your for the record information, and then you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Clow. My name's Bob Giles. I am a mayor of the city of McCall. I've been mayor for 4 years. There was a question asked earlier about out-of-state percentages. There are a total of 374 short-term rentals within the city limits of McCall. 103, or 28%, are out-of-state, owned and operated. I want to thank all of you for letting me speak on behalf of my community, the city of McCall. And we are in strong opposition to House Bill 506 today. I'm here as the mayor to share our position on protecting not only the property rights of second homeowners that own, and some of those that own short-term rentals, but also the permanent residents. In McCall, as I said earlier, we recognize there are 374 short-term rentals, but we view those as a valuable addition to our community, like other people have said today. They help house our valuable tourism industry. In fact, since 2016, we've been integrating these rentals into the fabric of our community with health and safety at the forefront. We've gained valuable feedback through provided public involvement opportunities, public comment throughout the stages of our short-term rental ordinance development, which has been a long journey. Our council makes local decisions to protect the welfare of our visitors while also minimizing the impacts on our local homeowners who see their neighbors change every weekend. We found the importance in managing fire safety protections, solid waste impacts, occupancy concerns, parking, welfare, safety, snow removal operations, and emergency access. Our local homeowners have their own property rights to a quiet enjoyment of their neighborhood, And that important right guarantees every resident in McCall be able to enjoy their space devoid of any unreasonable disturbances.
Robert, we need you to wrap up.
And for these reasons, we implore you to vote against House Bill 506 leaving the committee.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank you. Thank you
allowing
very
me the time and allowing me to answer the question that was asked.
much. Okay, very good. Thank you. Next up in person is Jeremy Radford, and be followed virtually by Dan Gukin, and in the whole is Stacy Armstrong. So those people, they're both virtual. So, Jeremy.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I thank you for your time and your consideration for House Bill 506. My name is Jeremy Radford of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Let me start off by quoting C.S. Lewis: "Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so for the approval of their own conscience. This bill will protect our sacred property rights by reining back the overreaching and discriminating local governments. Let me quote George Washington: "Freedom and property rights are inseparable. You can't have one without the other." I implore you to be our protectors of our property rights, and in doing so, you strengthen our futures and the future of our children. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. So next up is Dan Gukin. He's virtual. Stacy Armstrong, you're in the on deck, and Alan Song-Tad is on deck, or in the hole. Let's get that right. So Dan Gukin. Dan, if you can hear me, welcome to the House Business. If you could give your further record information, and then your 2 minutes will start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dan Gukin, City Councilman for Coeur d'Alene. The city's been working on this issue of STRs for 7 years. We've held many public meetings, 2 long hearings. We've received over 100 written comments, spent countless staff hours, and untold thousands of dollars on short-term rentals. This committee is attempting to address this complex and ongoing issue with maybe an hour's worth of testimony and debate. This is too little time. I hear cries of property rights. In my 12 years on the city council, the only time I hear people becoming defensive about their property rights is when they desire to exploit their residential property for financial gain. Yes, it's a right, and the city supports this right. In our efforts to regulate STRs, it is not our desire to shut them all down. One senior citizen who's testified before us relies on her STR as a source of income. And that's great. I support it. But people don't want to use a house as a source of income. They have rights too. When you live in a house, it's a home. You raise your family, you celebrate birthdays, Christmas, baby's first steps. An STR, on the other hand, is just a house. Unlike a monthly rental, it is not occupied by a neighbor. In Coeur d'Alene and the downtown Garden District, over 40% of the houses are STRs. I know one woman who is the only full-time resident on her block, and she has rights too. An overabundance of STRs turns a neighborhood into a commercial hotel district. Too many STRs negatively affect our housing stock and impact the affordable housing crisis. This city has spent years balancing the rights of neighbors and homeowners with the rights of STR owners. These rights go both ways. This problem is close to us and best fixed by us, not by legislators 400 miles away who've had barely a day to weigh these important issues. I urge you to keep this bill in committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dan. Next up is Stacy Armstrong, virtual, followed by Alan Sontag, virtual, and then Marissa McPherson, virtual. Oh, is she in person? No. Stacy, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can't
there we
see you,
go.
but that's fine. Yeah,
Hi.
now we can see you. If you could give us for the record information, and then your 2 minutes will start.
Perfect. My name is Stacy Armstrong, and I'm a resident of Dalton Gardens, Idaho.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman and members of the esteemed House Business Committee, thank you so much for allowing this hearing. Like I said, my name is Stacy Armstrong, and I'm a resident of Dalton Gardens, Idaho, and a small business owner in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I represent the hospitality working class persons, as I am one myself. We rely on tourism to keep our economy flowing. I support House Bill 506 as it carefully and considerably cleans up the language in the bill. It is imperative that you support House Bill 506. This bill keeps local governments in check within the Constitution and asks for the state to ensure that local municipalities stay within the balance of local control. I would like to remind you that House Bill 506 does not take away a city's ability to require a permit or to even revoke a permit if a problem within a short-term rental property exists within our communities. It only requires them and asks them respectfully to work within the guidelines of the U.S. and Idaho constitutions. It requires them to provide all Idahoans with equal treatment under the law. We need you, our representatives, to stand up for us at the local level. House Bill 506 does not ask for special treatment. It is simply asking that the state of Idaho draw the line for property rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Next up is Alan Sontag, Tad, virtual, followed by Marissa McPherson, virtual, and then in person Randy Benglan, if I'm saying that correctly.
Hello?
Yes, Alan, you can hear us?
Yes, apparently my
Okay.
video is not working.
Okay.
My name is Alan Songstad. I'm the chairman of the Bonner County Planning Commission, and we have spent the last 8 months going into regulations on short-term rentals, whether they should be invoked or not. We have come to the conclusion that there is a reason to protect neighborhoods, as the current version of 6539 says, that short-term rentals should be consistent with the integrity of residential neighborhoods. There's no reason for this committee or the legislature to alter that balance. Bonner County has studied this issue. We believe we have an ordinance that protects both property rights and also the rights of those permanent residents. What's interesting about this proposed bill is that it takes away almost every possible restriction on short-term rentals, including parking, which is of course a major issue with regard to short-term rentals, since you could have multiple families with boats and so on renting a single family residence. What's also interesting about this is that it severely restricts the ability of local government to balance the needs of short-term rental owners and the community itself. But it then says, gives regulatory authority to short-term rental marketplaces. So it seems to me that there's a distrust of local governments and more of a trust in the short-term rental marketplaces. That doesn't make any sense. This is a local control issue, and it should be protected as such. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Alan. So next up is Marissa McPherson, virtual. Then we have Randy Benglan, in person, and then back to virtual, Brian Oberholzer. So Marissa. Marissa, I think we see you now, so give us your for the record information, and then you have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you, Chairman Clow and members of the committee for allowing me to testify today. I greatly appreciate your time and consideration. My name is Marissa McPherson, and I am a resident of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I am also on the board of directors for the Coeur d'Alene Vacation Rental Alliance. I ask you to please support HB 506 to support families. Traveling families need short-term rentals due to the amenities that are available compared to hotels and other lodging options, such as diet restrictions. Having a fully stocked kitchen creates control of the food consumed. Privacy, no shared walls or spaces with strangers. Children and infants, pack and place provided within properties, more space to play, and a full-size refrigerator and freezer to store perishable food and breast milk. Shorter distances from parking to entrances and exits, fenced yards available to four-legged travelers, outdoor areas such as patios, decks, etc. to gather and enjoy the weather together. A place to feel at home with separate rooms and bedrooms, allowing space, solitude, and harmony for everyone. Short-term rentals help families create lifelong memories. What memories have you created at a short-term rental? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Marissa. Next up is Randy Menglin, in person, followed by Brian Oberholzer, virtual, and then Debbie Trinan, I think is the way it's pronounced, virtual. Randy, give us your for the record information.
Randy Benglin, Lava Hot Springs, Idaho. I was born and raised in Lava Hot Springs and have been a realtor there since 2003. Our population is 250 people. We have close to 600,000 tourist visitors per year, all in less than 1 square mile. We proactively passed our vacation rental ordinance in 2006. 2 foundational principles guide our short-term rental regulation. Number 1, honor private property rights. Number 2, maintain the integrity of residential neighborhoods. You can do both. One of the first things HB 506 does is strikes the language, maintain the integrity of residential neighborhoods. Passing HB 506 effectively destroys the integrity of residential neighborhoods. Please refer to the handout, page 2. In Lava Hot Springs, we have a simple short-term rental regulation. In the commercial zone, non-owner occupied short-term rentals are allowed. Of the 65 single-family dwellings in the commercial zone, 29 of them are short-term rentals, almost 50%. In the residential zone, we allow owner or manager occupied short-term rentals. This policy honors private property rights and maintains the integrity of residential neighborhoods. If HB 506 is passed, the ratio of 50% in the commercial zone will quickly encroach into the residential zone of 130 single-family dwellings. Our residential community will be decimated. Their elementary school will close. There will not be anyone to serve on city government. Housing for emergency services personnel and the workforce will drastically diminish. Attempts to provide affordable housing will be very difficult and costly. I am a proponent of private property rights. However, buying and vacating a single-family dwelling in another neighborhood, a different city, or even a different state, basically operating a managerless mini hotel in a residential area is a whole different animal. You then must take into consideration the private property rights of adjoining property owners and the impact on the neighborhood and community. That's where regulation comes in to protect private property rights and the integrity of residential neighborhoods. Please consider these points in your decision today. I urge for your no vote. The survival of Lava Hot Springs and other vulnerable communities hang in the balance.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Next up is Brian Oberholzer. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. Virtual, followed by Debbie Trinan, virtual, and then in person Dan Scott. So Dan, you'd be in the on deck chair, but virtual. With Brian, right? Mm-hmm. Brian, can you hear us? We may have to come back to Brian. So let's move on to Debbie. Oh, is he no response? Okay, so we're going to go on to Debbie Trinan, followed by Dan Scott, who's on deck, and then by Linda Bruinton, virtual. Okay, Debbie, can you hear us? Are you muted? She's showing she's coming on. Yeah. Okay, we're going to have to move on. Debbie, if you get logged on, log back in and we'll try to catch up to you again. Next up is Dan Scott in person, followed by Linda Brewington, virtual, and then Daniel Murphy in person.
Mr. Chairman, representatives, I'm Dan Scott. I live in Eagle and have a short-term rental in McCall. I represent the McCall Homeowners Property Rights Protection Association. 506 needs to become law. It says that all entities in the state of Idaho, even cities, are subject to the rule of law. The protection of property rights is a core value in the state of Idaho. The state of Idaho values tourism as a vital source of revenue. IC 63-1802 states, this act is designed to promote access to short-term rentals, limiting local and governmental authority to prohibit these beneficial property uses. The McCall SRO blatantly violates 1802. IC 67-6539 prohibits cities from enacting any ordinance that has the express or practical effect of prohibiting STRs. McCall STR SRO practically prohibits STRs and openly violates 6539. IC 5302 provides that cities may make ordinances that are not inconsistent with the laws of the state of Idaho. McCall's SRO is inconsistent with the laws of the state of Idaho. It appears that McCall can break the law with impunity. The Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 16, provides that no ex post facto law shall ever be passed. The McCall SRO contains ex post facto provisions that egregiously violates the Idaho Constitution. The McCall SRO is illegal and arbitrary and capricious. It deprives property owners of due process and takes property by fiat. 506 will stop the lawless actions of the city of McCall. The Idaho legislature has provided clear legislative intent. Mr. Chairman, I see my time's expired. I'll wrap it up.
Okay.
McCall's imposition of their illegal ordinance on their citizens has emboldened Coeur d'Alene, Lava, Bear
Dan,
Lake.
wrapping up means we got to bring it to an end.
All right, sir.
That's just my interpretation of that, Dan. So, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Next up is Linda Brewington, virtual. Daniel Murphy's in person, and then Daniel Titus is virtual. So we're waiting for Linda Brewington. Hey, Linda, can we hear you? Can you hear us? Yeah, there you are. Okay, if you can hear us, give us for your record information, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I live in Island Park City, and
You
we
need to
have
start with your name so we can get the
1,400 STRs, which outnumbers the local residents by about 9 out of 10. Island Park already has issues with septics contaminating our soil and our water, causing the water and the soil mandatory for people's health to be a big problem. The residents are aware that Idaho is not regulating STRs and have swarmed in to take advantage of deregulation. Most all of our rentals are non-residents of Idaho. Just a small percentage of people even live in Idaho. If anything, the state of Idaho, the lawmakers need to be more supportive of local regulation businesses by taking control in their own individual communities. Every city, every county has different issues, and they need to be able to take care of those on their own. Idaho needs to do the same as Utah. Utah voted no on this exact same bill. They turned it all back to the cities and the counties to regulate SDRs. Some of them have actually banned SDRs because they have gotten so out of control and contaminated the neighborhoods. Please vote no to eliminating the city and counties regulating short-term rentals. With over 1,500 of it in the small Island Park area, we need to have some kind of regulation. We're not asking them to go away. We're just asking them to be regulated because a 2-bedroom SDR has as many as 8 trucks and 6 short haulers for their snowmobiles and their ATVs. No family would allow that many people into a home of this small. McCall, Idaho, kudos to you for taking care of the problem. They didn't tell the SDRs to go away. They just are regulating. And if you listen to everybody who is a proponent of deregulation, they're all businesses with their hands in somebody's pocket.
Okay, Linda.
So we ask you to please allow the cities and the counties to regulate.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we can count your testimony. Would you please state your name?
My name's Linda Burrington from
All right.
Island Park, Idaho.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is Daniel Murphy, who's in person, I understand. And then Danielle Titus is virtual, and in the whole is Heather Christensen in person.
Daniel Murphy of Boise, Idaho. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and esteemed committee members. I had the distinct honor of meeting with these fine short-term rental business owners last week. I escorted them around the Capitol and met with numerous legislators. I also learned about their business mission and their struggles with some municipalities that seem to want to limit their property rights and livelihood. According to these business owners, cities are overstepping their constitutional boundaries, and these business owners are seeking redress with legislative action. Short-term rentals provide a valuable asset to the economy of Idaho. When a family or a couple of families might vacation together using short-term rentals fit their budgets, this helps them enjoy their Idaho vacation. Take away the short-term rental options, tourists may seek other venues outside of Idaho. Remember, tourists to Idaho or other parts of the state spend money. They ski, play golf, sail, fish, and other fun activities. That brings dollars to the community and to Idaho as well. I've heard that some cities are trying to enforce new codes on these homeowners as well that would cost into the tens of thousands of dollars. In Coeur d'Alene, Mayor James Hammond, a 3-page letter to Representative Jordan Redmond, he tries to defend his actions against short-term rental owners. He lists items these business owners would have to spend more money to make the mayor and city council happy. Cities already have ordinances that speak to parking, noise, and other issues. These cities are trying to squash free enterprise by their edicts and collect more fees for their pockets of City Hall. I wonder if there are committee members here who own short-term rentals and or have used them in their past vacations. Sometimes cities and other local entities seem to overstep their bounds and put our Constitution on the back burner. I'm in support of House Bill 506. Thank you very much.
Okay, Daniel, is anybody getting your picture today?
I like to be behind the camera, Mr. Chairman.
All right, yeah, I know that. All right, thank you, Daniel.
Thanks.
Next up is Danielle Titus, virtual, followed by Heather Christensen in person, and then Pamela Larson in virtual. So going for Danielle Titus. Okay. Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
If you could give us your for the record information and tell us your thoughts in 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Danielle Titus. I'm from Twin Falls, Idaho, and I'm in opposition to this bill. While the bill's intent is to promote access and personal property rights, it introduces several critical flaws. First, the bill restricts local governments from enacting ordinances around short-term rentals, undermining their ability to address unique community needs. This one-size-fits-all approach disregards the diverse characteristics of neighborhoods across the state. Second, the definition of greater restrictions or obligations is overly broad, encompassing essential safety measures like smoke detectors and first aid kits. By exempting short-term rentals from these basic requirements, the bill risks the well-being of guests and threatens public safety. Next, the definition of short-term rentals in Idaho Code is ambiguous, leaving room for interpretation regarding the use of the rental. Not to mention that the 30-day limitation does not prevent the same individual from renting consecutively. With this bill classifying all short-term rentals as a residential land use, there's now a loophole. This legislature can be used as a workaround for almost any business to operate as a short-term rental despite the zoning designation. This oversight undermines the effectiveness of zoning regulations and renders public hearings for special use permits or conditional use permits, which would normally be required, obsolete. This not only infringes upon the rights of neighboring property owners, but can cause issues related to infrastructure, city planning, and the integrity of established zoning regulations. Finally, the emergency clause in Section 3 raises suspicion. Declaring an emergency without clear justification creates an atmosphere of urgency, limiting the time for thorough public debate and scrutiny. So to summarize, overly broad restrictions overreach state authority, neglect unique residential challenges, and compromises safety and welfare. Classifying all short-term rentals as residential, regardless of use, is problematic, and the emergency rest decision-making process undermines and sacrifices the democratic process. Overall, the bill exemplifies several critical flaws and still fails to strike a balance between property rights and community well-being. I urge you to vote against this legislation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. For the record for everyone, the emergency clause is a standard process in our legislature now in case for some reason our session goes too long, then our bills won't go into effect in appropriate time. So unless the date is not July 1st of 2024, it's just standard procedure. So just for the record. Anyway, thank you, Danielle. Okay. Next up, after Danielle, is Heather Christensen in person, followed by Pamela Larson, who is virtual, followed by Roy Bunderson, who's also virtual. So, Heather.
Chairman Clow, representatives, my name is Heather Christensen. I live in Lava Hot Springs, and I'm here to advocate for 506. The City of Lava's decision to restrict nightly rentals to commercial zones contradicts the statutory classifications of short-term rentals as residential land use for zoning purposes. Now, a lot of the things that have already been said here today have been said, or that I'm going to say, have been said by others. So I'm not going to go through this. I simply want to say this. I've witnessed over the last 3 years, Lava Hot Springs afford individuals and grant them the opportunity to nightly rental their property while others have not been given that same allowance. Randy Beglin being an individual. My home sits not far from his, yet he is a part of a development that borders Lava Hot Springs, is outside of it, but utilizes all of our resources. Somehow, all of these homes, a good portion of them, not every single one of them, have been zoned for nightly rentals. However, they have not been forced to meet the same requirements that others have. I've spent close to $300,000 over the last 3 years trying to meet requirements. I've had cancer. I have been put through the ringer. I have tried to work with my city to no avail. I feel that the treatment is not fair or constitutional, not because I'm feeling sorry for myself, but because I'm seeing what's happening around me. How does an individual that sits on city council at one time get approval for an entire development, convert them into nightly rentals, utilize Lava's resources, yet is not held accountable the same way I am? Bill 506 needs to be supported, not because it interferes with the city's rights to regulate. It does the opposite. To hear that over and over again surprises me. It gives them the opportunity to regulate, to make sure that homeowners as myself are held accountable. Give me an opportunity to show you that I have amazing intention for my neighbors and that I'm not here just to make money and to benefit off of others, but to actually work as a team. It is hard to be accused of doing things without actually being given an opportunity to show what I can do. And for this reason, I ask that you send 506 to the floor with a due pass.
Okay, Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Next up virtually would be Pamela Larson, followed by Roy Bunderson, virtual, followed by Kenneth Thibert, virtual. So, Pamela Larson.
Hello,
Pamela,
Chairman
welcome to the
and
House
committee
Business
members.
Committee.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. If you can begin with your for the record
Sorry
information.
for that delay. My name is Pamela Larson. I'm a resident of Sun Valley, and we've owned a condo in Sun Valley for 11 years. I am testifying in opposition to House Bill 506. As a permanent resident of our condo in Sun Valley, it is vitally important that local city and county governments have the ability to regulate short-term rentals. I live next to multiple short-term rental units, and there are safety and other issues. I wanted to say the proposed amendment would essentially remove virtually all regulation by cities and counties of short-term rentals. The proposed amendment would only serve the interests of property owners of the short-term rental. And 3, the proposed amendment would not serve the best interests of the cities and counties along with the interests of the renters. I can tell you from personal experience, a lot of owners have no idea of when they short-term rent what goes on. For example, one of our neighbors, short-term tenants came in and converted their propane grill and used charcoal briquettes. There's no one minding the ship. The regulations that Ketchum City has imposed have been very good, very helpful, and we as property owners have rights as well. There's been a lot of discussion about we are citizens of the state of Idaho, we have property rights, we have constitutional rights. Well, all of us do, whether we are an owner that short-term rents or an owner who resides permanently in a property. All of us have rights. Therefore, I feel it's vitally important that the local cities and counties have the authority to regulate in a responsible manner to protect all of our rights. There's this attitude of don't tread on me, take away regulations. Well, it goes both ways. And I respectfully ask that you do not allow or vote no on this bill and it doesn't move forward. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Next up is Roy Bunderson, virtual, followed by Kenneth Thibert, virtual, followed by Cammie Vanderbeck, virtual or Beek. So Roy.
Distinguished members of the Business Committee, am I coming through?
Yeah, we can hear you. There's no video, but that's fine.
I serve as the mayor of the city of Bloomington. I'm a commissioner in the Bear Lake Regional Commission. So we're intimately aware of the problems that are developing. I've been involved in public service coming upon 50 years this summer, and I've seen very few issues that have been more divisive than STRs. 676539 is a statute that's very short and very brief and has led to multiple interpretations and has prompted what I view as almost a contagion to determine who can draft the most draconian regulations. As we're right in the middle of this fray to our recreational growth, we've been compelled to consider the impact versus the benefit of STRs, and we found that in the majority of the cases, the concerns can be reduced to noise, parking, and garbage, for which we already have ordinances to control. If ordinances are not in place, we have the ability to create them. However, some of the loudest voices in the discussion come from elements who just plain dislike the concept of STRs or view them as competition, and they're advocate for some of the regulations that are directed specifically at STRs under the guise of health and safety or community integrity, which far exceed the requirements for personal residence, which are the platform for this activity. This contention and aggressive action by public entities is prompting litigation with several cases already pending and certainly more to come. with your constituents' desire to protect their private property rights, investment, and way of life. Without further guidance and direction, this is becoming a litigious playground. While I recognize 506 is not perfect, it will at least provide a cooling off period. I personally worry more about the damage that's being taken by unjust liberties with 673539 than I do the STRs themselves. Please be assured I don't have my hand in anyone's pocket, and I don't want anyone's hand in my city's pocket because we don't have the money to defend against some of the actions. I would implore your committee to elevate this legislation beyond this very capable body of 17 and put it on the general floor for consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Roy. Next up is Kenneth Dybert, then Cammie Vanderbeek, and then Chris Perslow.
Chairman,
yes,
members of the committee,
Ken?
My name is Ken Dybert. I reside in McCall, Idaho. I'm in total support of the city of McCall's efforts to assure the safety and well-being of its residents and visitors to our community by enacting sensible regulations for STRs. I'm not opposed to short-term rentals. They are a reality today, particularly in recreational communities. But it's a reality that does present some very unique challenges. I have 5 large STRs located near my home. These units are very different from any family home or even long-term rentals. They are simply commercial properties that are plopped down in residential neighborhoods. In our small subdivision of 60 homes, there are 25 STRs. The occupancy of these rentals can exceed 200 people at any time. The 5 that are located within a stone's throw of my house can sleep over 50. That's a lot of folks and a lot of cars to accommodate in a residential neighborhood zoned for single-family homes. I must stress that, in my view, STRs may pretend to be family homes, but in reality, they are nothing more than commercial enterprises, just the same as any hotel or motel, with some huge exceptions, like no on-site management, and they don't comply with fire and life safety codes for commercial properties, which in reality they are. Current state law provides local governments an opportunity to engage their constituents in the formation of local regulations to fit local conditions and allow for local resolutions of common concerns. HB 506, in my view, removes the ability of local governments from enacting sensible, reasonable regulations.
Okay, Ken, you
I
need to
believe
wrap it up.
small government is a good idea, but HB 506 strips local governments from being able to govern at all. Mr. Chairman and committee, I urge you to vote no on this bill.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say Ken's a longtime friend. I haven't seen him in quite a few years, so hi, Ken. Next up
Nice to meet you
is
too,
Cammie
Chairman.
Vanderbeek with Chris Perslow on deck, and Wayne Lauer, who's on either telephone or virtual, is in the hole. So, Cammie. All right, Cammie, we can see you. Give us your for the record information and tell us about your
Hi,
post.
my name is Cammie Vanderbeek, and I'm from Island Park, Idaho. I'd like to first thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I believe this bill was born out of a necessity to protect property rights from the assault by very small groups within our communities who exhaustively attack them, and to see small town planning and zoning committees from running rampant in creating a smorgasbord of regulations with complete disregard for actualities or facts. In order to obtain a rental permit in Fremont County, short-term rental owners were required to unearth and double their septic system size at an undue cost of tens of thousands of dollars. I too was forced to install a septic system twice the size necessary. My cabin sleeps 8 to 10 people. I now have a septic system designed for 20, resulting in twice the loss of trees and at twice the cost, only to find out a year later that that requirement was rescinded because it had no basis in fact. Can you imagine $15,000 only to find out a year later that the committee made a mistake? I'm not opposed to fire extinguishers, first aid kits, and basic safety requirements, but requiring changes costing tens of thousands of dollars only for STR owners, and then to turn around after the realization it was a mistake and remove that requirement is completely negligent and unacceptable overreach. Many of us are completely fine with fire extinguishers and basic requirements, but some of the rules and regulations that are being forced upon us in order to receive a short-term rental permit are ridiculous. We've had $70,000 requirements added in for fire safety when none of our neighbors around us were required to do the same. So even if we performed that on our properties that could be acres, no one around us was required to do so, and our properties would burn just the same. So I ask that you really consider this House bill to protect us and realize that all of these safety requirements should include everyone, not just short-term rental owners. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cammie. Next up is Chris Perslow, virtual, followed by Wayne Lower, and we're not sure if that's just on a telephone or if that's Vanderbeek, and then Jonathan Spendlove in person. So Chris Perslow. He's not in there? Okay. It appears that he's not online, so we're going to jump down to Wayne Lower. Wayne's not showing up online either, so Jonathan Spendlove in person. Okay. And he will be followed by Kathleen Curtis in person. And then Bill Reagan is virtual, is in the hole. So, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greetings from the Magic Valley and City of Twin Falls, also the Idaho chapter of the American Planning Association. I am the Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Twin Falls. A lot of things have been said. I'm just going to point out one thing that we believe in the City of Twin Falls, and which could be a little bit of amendment to this bill. We do believe in private property rights. We believe that people should have the right to have short-term rentals. I believe there is also going to be a conflict with this bill. In the other legislative acts that have been taking place, there is no maximum occupancy listed within this bill. Building codes and fire codes have specific occupancy limits for a reason. The legislature has dictated that cities and counties should have these limits in place for safety reasons. Usually that number is at 10 people staying for less than 30 days, because when there's an emergency in these buildings, people get discombobulated, they cannot find their way out, or there's other reasons for those safety measures. We would believe that something similar to that should be in place, and we should not use property rights or the Land Use Planning Act to circumvent those safety measures. That is the one thing that we believe should be taken into account. Something similar is actually in Title 67, Chapter 65, which deals with, don't remember the section, can be honest with you. It ends up with group homes and senior living homes. They have a limit of 10 people as well for that exact reason. Otherwise, they need to follow the building code. Something similar to that is what the City of Twin Falls would like to see. There is just one last bit. I had something to write written up for this group, but I'm just going to forego everything else and say thank you very much for this consideration.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. Next up is Kathleen Curtis in person. And then Bill Reagan virtual, and Kelly Hill is in person.
Oh, good. Thank you, Chairman Clow and members of the committee. My name is Kathleen Curtis, and I live in McCall, Idaho, and I'm in support of this bill. I'm an employee of a local property management company that has over 30 employees that live and work in McCall and in Valley County. We as a company go above and beyond to make sure our homes are safe and well-maintained. All of us live in the community that work for this company 365 days a year, and we take great pride in the homes we manage. We want to be good neighbors. So I live in a community or in a neighborhood that has 3 to 4 short-term rentals, and we don't want parties either. So if we do have a problem, we go to the local property management company or to the code enforcement. So again, this affects our bottom line as employees. So I am in support of this bill.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Get mine. Bill Reagan is not online, so we're going to go to Kelly Hill. And then followed Jeremy Grimm is on deck. He's virtual. And James Bruati is virtual. Kelly Hill.
Hello, I'm Kelly Hill from McCall, Idaho. I am the manager of short and long-term rentals in McCall. I believe that this bill does not take away the ability to regulate. It just holds local governments to the intent of the current legislation. I'm all in favor of good regulations, but we are not seeing that. What we are seeing is large homes in our area being discriminated against. I'm here representing, I'm obviously in favor of House Bill 506, and I'm here representing the 8 homeowners that have a home with 5 or more bedrooms. These homes, as part of the ordinance, are required to obtain a CUP, a conditional use permit, in order to continue renting. This requirement is a fee of $3,200 just for the application fee, and then another $550 for a short-term rental permit and a fire inspection. So our owners have gone through this process. They stand in front of the P&Z and they're being denied. So at that point, the owner has 2 choices. One is not to rent at all. The other is to convert or deconstruct their home into a 4-bedroom home. How do you do that? Well, you are told by the city planner to remove the door jamb, remove all the furniture out. So a home that was originally purchased for a large family and with the intent of short-term renting it when it's not in use is no longer usable by their immediate family. So their hands are kind of tied. I'm in favor of House Bill 506, and I ask that you do the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly Hill. Next up is Jeremy Grimm, virtual, followed by James Ruati, virtual, and then Alexander Killian, virtual. Jeremy, we see you. So if you give your for the record information, and you have your 2 minutes.
Chairman and committee members, Jeremy Grimm. I'm the mayor of Sandpoint, speaking on behalf of the city of Sandpoint. To start and to be very clear, Sandpoint has a thriving 180 unit strong short-term rental market that rents to visitors who provide many benefits to our community and economy. House Bill 506 seems to be a solution in search of a problem. The marketplace is working very well in Sandpoint. I want to express our strong objection to House Bill 506 for 3 reasons. The first is our inspections are life safety issues and are necessary. In Sandpoint, the bar is very low. We inspect short-term rentals for 3 things: gas leak and CO2 monitors, fire extinguishers, and safe egress. Short-term rental units are not hotel rooms and act as such with short-term visitors. Hotel rooms are designed and focused for visitor safety. Moving on, the next objection has to do with the transient nature of the renters and the impact on the reasonable peace and enjoyment of adjacent property owners. If any of you have ever sat at the bedside of a cancer patient or somebody dealing with chemotherapy recovery, imagine coming home from treatment and trying to rest and recover only to have a continual disturbance next door. Just one example in Sandpoint, one short-term rental had 6 police calls in 1 year. Intoxication, parking in roadways, noise. And finally, as was stated, government works best when it operates closest to the people. In Sandpoint, we've strived for over 40 years to develop a diverse economy that broadens our economic opportunity in our community. Short-term rental promotion beyond what we have today will degrade our ability to provide housing to our existing hard-fought-for businesses and industry. Thank you so much. We offer our support for denial of this bill. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next up is James Bruati, virtual, followed by Alexandra Killian, virtual, and then Kyle Osborne in person. James, we can see you, so if you gave your for the record information and give us your 2 minutes of information.
Sure. My name is James Buati, and I own a home in McCall, Idaho. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, representatives, or good afternoon, I should say. I'm Jim Buati. I own a home in McCall. To afford it, I use it as a short-term rental during rental periods when I'm not using it. I am not a big corporate interest. I'm just a guy who wants to own a vacation home. I rarely make a profit, but the additional income softens the blow on the mortgage payments. Recently, the city of McCall has adopted an ordinance targeting short-term rentals for special regulation, in my opinion, in an attempt to actually eliminate many of the short-term rentals in town, particularly the larger homes. This ordinance is severely harming many homeowners in McCall, but in my specific case, they have arbitrarily and with no consideration of the size of my home limited my occupancy to no more than 10 people. My house is 4,200 square feet. It can safely accommodate 19 people, though I self-limit to 14. Fully half my rentals are over 10 people. I expect to lose all those renters. As a result, my home may no longer be affordable to me, and I might have to sell that home that I've worked my entire life for. After paying all my taxes, obeying the laws, and bringing a lot of business to the city, I feel pretty betrayed. I have endeavored to make my home a venue for large families with children, with a large custom dinner table and an activity room. Without large homes like mine, where would families with children go in McCall to affordably rent enough space? Renting at hotels is much more expensive, and it certainly would not allow the togetherness that a large home provides. I have passed the city fire inspection, so safety is not the issue. In addition, neither I nor my property manager are aware of any complaints against my home caused by short-term vacationers, so I fail to see how renting my home damages the neighborhood in any way. Idaho passed legislation in 2017 to protect us against government overreach. The city is trying to illegally skirt the law. I cite as an example the gentleman who brought up the tragedy in Donnelly. Between June 2017 and September 22, there were 6 tragedies in our area. Only one of them was a short-term rental, but they're not regulating the other 5 for any reason. I guess they just figure that common people don't have enough money to fight the ordinance in court. So please support HB506 and protect us little guys. Okay. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Buati.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I keep wanting to stick an R in there. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Alexander Killian is virtual, followed by Kyle Osborne in person, and Rick Faraday in person. Okay, we're not seeing Alexander Killian, so if Kyle Osborne is in person and ready, it'll be followed by Rick Faraday, and then followed in person by Robert Lance.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and representatives. Thank you for your time, consideration, and contribution to our great state. I'm Kyle Osborne. I reside in Boise, born in the Treasure Valley. My wife and I both have long histories, family histories in this area, and we own a short-term rental in McCall. We want to give others the opportunity to enjoy the state just as we have, but I'm here to talk about numbers. Our short-term rental contributes around $170,000 a year to the local economy. This includes over $25,000 in lot tax, which is only granted to resort cities whose economic well-being is tourism, as described in Idaho Code 50-1044. Another $30,000 a year to house cleaners alone, $45 an hour, flexible work schedule, landscapers, electricians, plumbers, the list goes on for what it takes to create a high-quality experience for people traveling. This number does not include the countless dollars spent at local businesses from all of our guests. The McCall ordinance steals our ability to contribute to the local economy. It impacts nearly 80% of our renters. The residential live monitoring requirement for the fire inspection process costs us nearly $19,000. They still reserve the right to require a fire suppression system upwards of $150,000. Currently, they're saying we have to spend nearly $25,000 to retrofit our water system, which has been working perfectly fine since 2007 when the house was built. This is an undue burden to livelihood. None of this is required for many other equivalent residential properties and seems to be in violation of Idaho Code 676539. 506 removes the current gray areas that Idaho cities have exploited and restores the original intent of protecting all of our property rights. Please pass 506 to the floor, and thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle. Next up is Rick Faraday, if I'm saying that correctly, in person, followed by Robert Lance, virtual, and followed then by, in the whole, Walter Burns, virtual.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clow and committee. My name is Rick Faraday from McCall. I'm a native Idaho and a 50-year business owner in McCall. I am opposed to this legislation. At May Hardware, we see firsthand how many STR owners there are. We sell and install locks on many of these homes. The thing that worries me every day is about this STR gold rush is the availability of employees for my 25-plus person staff. We are struggling to find employees that can afford housing in the area, even though May Hardware pays at the top level for retail help. Let me tell you the realities of this gold rush. Someone buys a 6-bedroom, 4-bath home for a retirement or vacation home and puts it in the STR pool. They rent it 8 months of the year for $1,500 a night. Figured as rented at a conservative number, 30% of those 8 months. That's a gross revenue of $108,000. To me, these are commercial enterprises, plain and simple. They should be regulated for the strain they put on our community. Health and safety should be the top of the list, but when you put 16 people in a residential neighborhood, it stresses not only numerous neighbors, but also every other city and county service. Our treasured small mountain resort cities are being inundated with people. The resulting land rush is leaving the middle class behind, and that will end up poorly for those of us who pay good wages and care about our employees. And worse, for employers who can't afford to pay at the level we do, they will be out of luck getting employees. It may seem that McCall is doing great. Look at the real estate prices and sales. Let me tell you, McCall City services are struggling, woefully underfunded. Water, sewer, roads, stormwater, housing. More state repressive oversight is not needed. What we need from the state is help with the stuff we need help with our infrastructure. So please don't buy the poor me excuse from these commercial renters. The right thing is to allow cities to put reasonable safety restrictions
You're gonna have to wrap
on these
up.
businesses and respect the rights of all homeowners within cities who have to shoulder the extra burden of these STR owners. Please kill HB506.
Thank you, Rick. Next up is, well, Walter Burns was on the list, but he's not online. So next up will be Lynn Bradescu in person. Did I skip one?
Yeah, Robert Lance.
Oh, Robert Lance. Okay, well, we'll follow Robert up next. Well, since you're already there, Lynn.
Oh, okay. Lynn Bradescu is my name, and I live in
Bradescu,
Boise.
yeah.
And I'm also a property manager, an investor, and I'm also the legislative district chairwoman for District 19. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. Heard a lot about personal property rights and who we should rent to and who we shouldn't rent to. And as you know, we can't discriminate against renting to anyone. And I don't believe that it's legal to say that you can't have so many people in a bedroom. Like if a person came to us and said, I have mother and father and 4 children, I can't say, well, that's too many people in a 3-bedroom home. So this idea that we can't rent to people, that we have to limit the amount of people in a bedroom is hogwash, basically. Also, the most problematic tenants that we had were college students living over by Boise State in a single-family home, and they had a lease for a whole year. But we had to call the police, we had to call their parents, we had to do all that stuff because they were causing problems. So short-term rentals are not the problem. It's people who don't know how to manage their property that are the problem. And I am adamantly opposed to any kind of regulations that would put the kibosh on anyone having their personal property rights. I think we have to give people personal responsibility. And I can wager that almost everyone in this room, probably 50% of you, don't have working smoke detectors right now. So how are we going to regulate that? You're going to send the fire department to everybody's house to check on them as an owner? I don't think so. I guess you should. I don't know. How much more do we need to tell people what to do all the time? We have to regulate everything. You're going to have to wear a helmet in the shower. I mean, where does it stop? And so I just want to say one more thing. Idaho has a proud tradition of defending private property rights and the freedom of contract. From territorial law through the various amendments to the state constitution, our state has always protected the right of individuals to own property, to freely enter into contracts, and to determine the conditions and consideration for the sale, lease, or rental of private property. Please pass this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Just for the record, I think we have room for about 5 more if everyone's moving along quickly. And I skipped over Robert Lance, who's virtual. And then that would put David Salactus, I know I'm butchering that one, on deck, and Colby Patchen as in person in the hole. Robert, welcome to the House Business Committee. If you could give us your for the record information and tell us about your thoughts on House Bill 506.
Hello, I'm sorry, I can't really hear you guys there, but my name is Robert Lance and I support this bill. I am a vacation rental owner here in Coeur d'Alene, and I am also a business owner. I've owned several businesses in the tourism field, and I've provided services to people who own vacation rentals. I have never encountered a corporate entity coming in and buying a bunch of vacation rentals. I never have, and I would love to have a business-to-business relationship with somebody like that. Let me tell you who owns vacation rentals in Coeur d'Alene. I own one. I live in mine part-time. I rent it out part-time. Because I do that, I can now afford to move out of my trailer park and into a nice house. Now, this has taken me 10 years, but I'm paying for my daughter's college, and I'm helping my 84-year-old mother stay retired. I'm able to help her financially, which I wasn't able to do before. She was working as a home health nurse well into her 70s, and now she can stay home and be retired and do what she wants to do. These are critical things that we can do to pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps. A lot of these people that I've worked with are retired teachers. They rent out their properties part-time as well. And because they do that, they have a better lifestyle. I do work with out-of-state people. They come in, they buy a house, and they rent it out. And they do this because they love Coeur d'Alene. They love it here. And they're going to retire here in a couple of years. They're policemen, firefighters, and teachers that live in California, Washington, and they just want out. And they're planning on moving here and retiring. So they buy a property, they rent it temporarily, and then they're going to move into it. So we're individuals. We're people that value our property rights and can make some money doing this and still enjoy the houses ourselves. It's been such a great lifestyle for me now, and I really support it for everybody that has the opportunity to do this. That's all I have. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, David. Next up is Colby Patchen, in person. Colby? Do I have that wrong?
Mr. Chair, Colby just texted, he's picking up his kids. Can I take a turn? I had signed up, but I don't think you're going to get to me.
And you are?
I am Kara Hipwell. I did online.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Karen Hipwell.
Kara Hipwell, Hipwell. And I manage a vacation rental for my family. It's a family home in McCall. Our time is valuable, so I will keep this short, but I am for House Bill 506. This law clarifies existing Idaho law. This law allows for us, the Idaho homeowner, to be protected, but also protects cities and counties to enforce reasonable regulations. We have hosted moms with kids competing for ski events. We've hosted workers in town for projects. We have hosted families who want to enjoy and explore our beautiful state of Idaho. We pay our permit fees. We passed our fire and safety inspection on our first visit. We are happy to continue to do so. No property owner I know wants the liability of an unsafe property. As a short-term rental owner, we have a great relationship with our neighbors, and we help each other out as neighbors do. And city overreach has personally impacted our home in McCall in a negative way, even though we have complied with all of the ordinances. Most short-term owners are like us, managing a family home or a home while they are out of town waiting to retire. We are not deep pocket STR owners. We want to make our neighborhoods better. We teach our children hard work through helping us manage and keep our homes in good repair. These are houses to us. These are not houses to us. These are our homes. Why is a full-time resident or long-term resident allowed to house 15 people unregulated, but I am limited to 10 in a safe, inspected home? We are looking for equality, and as it stands, this is not what is happening. Parking and any concerns can all be addressed through ordinances that apply to all. Please protect our homeowner rights while still allowing to share Idaho with others through short-term renting. If you do not help us, who will? Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Karen. I don't know if I got Nick Bondstedt is virtual. Okay, you're up next. And then Brent Peterson, virtual, and Seth Martin. And Seth will be the last one because that would be about 6 minutes and we're right on target. So. Hey, Nick, if you can hear us, what we need is your for the record information, and then you have your 2 minutes.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for your time. My name is Nick Bonsted, and I'm a property owner and resident here in McCall, Idaho, and I'm in opposition to House Bill 506.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman and committee, it's glaringly obvious that this bill exists for a single purpose, and that's to make wealthy individuals and investors even more wealthy at the expense of Idaho's rural communities and family values. Frankly, it's absurd that this obvious truth is veiled in what's described as property owners' rights. The majority of homeowners here in my town, of McCall, who also have rights, chose to enact common sense ordinances based on diverse stakeholder input in 2022. Now those rights are under attack by small groups of individuals who want to leverage state law for their own personal profit. So stripping a municipality of their autonomy to enact ordinances to maintain the quality of life for their residents is the epitome of government overreach and micromanagement, which is quite contrary to what our current elected officials in the majority say they stand for. So I've seen firsthand how unregulated short-term rentals have degraded my own neighborhood. What used to be family homes turned into 20-person capacity weekend party houses. So imagine putting in a hard week's worth of honest work, only to have a full weekend of 20 to 15 vehicles around a quarter-acre lot, excessive noise late into the night, overflowing garbage cans, speeding vehicles and UTVs endangering children, trespassing on private land, drugs, the list goes on. So make no mistake, by advancing this bill, the state's effectively telling its citizens that by law, they'll have to deal with this so that a minority of STR operators can profit. But to offer some financial perspective, like the gentleman from Sandpoint said, the short-term rental market is thriving. We've made the market even more lucrative, and we've eliminated those with unsustainable business models by doing so. The city of McCall and others should be applauded for their leadership in finding common ground among the majority of stakeholders to conserve our small towns. Under existing laws and ordinances, nobody is saying you can't operate a short-term rental, but what we are saying is that you have to operate as a respectful member of our community and abide by reasonable ordinances. I sincerely hope that this committee can exhibit the same leadership by leaving this bill in committee. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Nick. Next up is Brent Peterson, and on deck is Seth Martin. Both are virtual. Seth Martin may not be on deck, so Jim MacArthur, you might be the last one then. You're also virtual. Brent.
Hello,
if
friends.
hear
Can
us,
you hear me okay?
Yeah, if you can give us for the record information, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, my name is Brent Peterson, and I'm a homeowner in McCall. I was using a short-term rental, and I am for House Bill 506. Let me just say I own a home in McCall. I'm a short-term, I use a home for short-term rentals, and I'm committed to health and safety and for being a good neighbor. The City of McCall ordinance is an example, in my opinion, of government overreach. It is not about health and safety, but it is causing a financial undue burden on our family. They're pushing this ordinance with, and ironically, not connecting the notion of long-term rentals. There's different standards and being used here. And the danger is that this ordinance arbitrarily selected larger homes in particular to work against. In my case, there's connection of forcing us to have a fire suppression system at a cost of $100,000. The CUP process that in some regard allows my neighbors to decide whether or not this process for me to have my home as a rental of more than 10 or not. In addition, they also require a new water meter that will invite us a cost of $15,000. And again, what's curious to me is they don't have the same requirement for long-term rentals as well. The P&Z is also asking me, even though my home, it was up to code when it was built, to possibly redo my driveway. And again, we've operated our home as a short-term rental. We want to be good neighbors, but the excessive costs that aren't doing anything with health or safety are a problem. In addition, there's a sense in which my neighbors who are good neighbors can decide simply because they don't want a short-term rental that they can limit them into a financial way, causing an undue burden to move them out. So I think that the issue for McCall in particular is government overreach, not connected to health and safety, but really inhibiting my rights as a property owner. So thanks for that consideration of supporting House Bill 506.
Okay, thank you, Brent. I'm going to see if Seth Martin is on virtual, and he will be our last public testimony. We're not seeing Seth Martin. Okay, we only have 1 minute left, so I'm going to close the public testimony portion of the meeting. I'm going to open this back up to the sponsor to make any closing remarks and then respond to questions. So, Representative Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I want to thank everyone that testified as well. I appreciate the light that's been shed on this for and against. I actually think, again, this is the exact body that should be taking up these issues, and I really do appreciate all the testimony. I had a few hot topic bills this year. I did not think this was going to be one of them, but this one might have been the hottest. So in closing, I guess, I think that this bill's goal is to just allow for non-discrimination against short-term rentals compared to long-term rentals, and again, just trying to help secure private property rights. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Okay, you stand for questions. Committee, any questions for the sponsors? Boy, yeah, Representative Crane.
Thank you. Just for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion's in order.
Mr. Chairman, there's been good points made on both sides of this issue. If you listen to the short-term rental owners, I think that there is a case to be made in some instances that the city has overstepped its bounds. However, if you listen to city officials and you listen to individuals that have homes in these resort cities, there are some necessary regulations that need to be put in place in order to ensure that the city can continue to function and that those individuals that have their home there can live there peacefully. So I would move that we send House Bill 506 to general orders. I don't think that the way it's currently constructed, it's going to work, but I think that there potentially could be some amendments added to this and further negotiations between the cities and Representative Redmond that could potentially work this issue out.
Okay. The motion is properly before us by Representative Brent Crane to move House Bill 506 to general orders. Is there any other discussion or motions? Representative Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to also thank all the testifiers. This has been an interesting meeting to go through, and we've heard a lot of points on both sides. And with that, I will be supporting the motion on the floor, but I'd also ask for a roll call vote since it's been so contentious here.
All right. Representative Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to declare Rule 80.
Okay. Rule 80 is a declaration of a potential conflict. Okay.
Rule 80.
Okay.
Rule 80.
Rule 80, Rule 80, Rule 80. So you get Redmond and both Cranes. Okay. I see no other lights on. Or do I? Oh, Representative Crane, I'm sorry. Green. And like, I said this earlier in the week, 4 cranes are better than 2.
I think we're going to have some serious discussions here.
Yeah.
Yes, to the good chairman and the committee, I do want to echo some of the comments that were that Representative Crane mentioned. I do agree that there's an opportunity to go back to the table and have further discussion. Certainly, my preference is that the community can work through this together and that discussion happens at the community level. I agree, looking at the ordinances, there are several that had my concerns. I will just put this one out there. The decommissioning of a room is incredibly, in my opinion, very problematic, and I'd like to see that discussion continue. But this is something that should be taken care of at the local level. So I want to encourage those here in the body to regroup and see if there's some sort of compromise you guys can seek out. So I am going to support the motion to send it to general orders.
Any other? Representative Andrus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm going to support the motion, but I wanted to clarify something that came up in debate. One debater made a comment that why can a former city councilman put in a subdivision in Lava when I can't? And the distinction there, just for the edification of the body, was that subdivision is just outside of the city limits. And in that county, there's no restriction. So just to keep that clear, I'm sure you guys were all thinking about it. So thank you.
Okay. Any other? Representative Birch?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to speak to the motion if I could, and I share the same sentiment here that there are, this was excellent testimony and really brought to light a lot of issues. And actually, I caught the same issue, Representative Andrus, as well, to the point where I just don't know if there's enough time with what we've got on the calendar to try to address this issue through general orders. I'm just wondering if is it, I don't know that I see a quick fix here for something like this, because there are these broader issues of the balance between, what's right for the individual, what's right for the community, local control, and I would almost rather see, the parties come back with something that strikes more of a balance and more deliberation than just throwing a few amendments out there. I think there's a lot more at stake, and I don't know if that perception has some merit. Maybe this is an issue that we take up early in the next session instead of trying to address it through the general orders process.
Okay. I just thought I'd take a pause before I move on to the next member. General orders is where the House can amend a bill. Okay, you may not be aware when you hear general orders, what does that mean? Because a bill that's sent to a committee, we judge it up or down. We cannot make an amendment. It has to go back to the floor for amendments. So that's why the general orders motion. I think Representative Avers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be supporting this motion. I think it captures the sentiment that I'm feeling here on this bill. I wanted to address one thing that sort of bothered me that was made, which was an assertion that maybe we have only spent 1 day on this or 1 hour of public testimony. For one, I just looked at my email. I received 143 emails on this subject on both sides. I've spent hours meeting with organizations, individuals, groups that are affected by this, phone calls, even snail mail on this topic. And so I do feel like, at least speaking for myself, and I believe with my colleagues, I think have spent a lot of time trying to understand and get our arms around this. So I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
As my former vice chairman, I was forwarding them all to you. All right. Next up is Representative Furness.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for a comment, I'll be supporting the motion to send it to general orders, but I would hope, and I want to say to the sponsor that I appreciate all the work he's put into this and all the input, but we've got to reconcile between the bill and the cities. I represent some cities that have these STRs, and this is a real conundrum. So, but we've got to get the cities on board. So I'll be sending it to general orders. Hopefully we can do that.
Okay, Representative Lanting.
My comment's going to be for comment, Chairman.
Okay.
I will support the motion somewhat reluctantly, but I will support it. I would hope that I would urge the chairman and others in the audience who were part of this writing this bill that they certainly take into consideration and meet with the Association of Idaho Counties and the Idaho Association of Counties and the Association of Idaho Cities to make sure that their input can be involved in this. That's where I got a lot of I come from a city council background, and state preemptions bother me. I've actually voted for a couple, but in the past, when you're sitting in the city and you feel like you have the pulse of your community, and then a preemption comes down from the legislature that throws that pulse completely out because it's a one-size-fits-all. Most of these issues are not one-size-fits-all. So let's take some time and get the amendments correctly and get those two organizations deeply involved in this, or I'm afraid I'll be voting no on the floor.
Okay. Thank you. I see no further lights, but before we go further, just remind everybody, we have general orders tomorrow, but this will not be on there, even though we have one of the most outstanding assistant majority leaders in the state. Yeah. He won't have time to get that onto the agenda for tomorrow. So just for everyone's right, it's going to be hard to get this amended and through and to the Senate, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, with that, we've had a roll call vote requested, so let's have a roll call vote.
Representative Crane 12.
Aye.
Representative Crane 13. Aye. Representative Palmer. Aye. Representative Barbieri. Aye. Representative Dixon. Aye. Representative Andrus. Aye. Representative Furness. Aye. Representative Mitchell.
Aye.
Representative Cornelis.
Aye.
Representative Ehlers. Representative Lanting. Aye. Representative Petsky. Representative Redmond.
Yes.
Representative Birch. Aye. Representative Green. Aye. Representative Rubel. Aye. Chairman Clow.
Aye. So we have unanimous vote, and I wanted to say that for the record, I begged that we could have till 4 o'clock today, and the speaker wanted to go at 3:30, so I'm not going to let you go. Otherwise, I'm going to get some funny looks from them. But I appreciate the behavior of everyone, very respectful of the process, and everyone that was watching virtually, it went pretty smoothly. Virtual is a little bit fuzzy because it takes probably 3 minutes to get out a 2-minute statement, but everyone was very courteous, and I appreciate that. I look forward to working with the sponsors to see if we can come up with some amendments that would improve this bill. With that, we go on the floor at 4 o'clock, so don't show up too early. All right, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.